Hello. I am Keyoka, the Awkward Black Nomad. I'm a writer, I'm a dog mom, and once a month we host a book chat on the channel. If you are not a member of the Read and Wonder Book Club, what we doing? It is a Facebook group where we choose a book every month to read by a black author. This month we read A Skyfull of Elephants by Cebo Campbell. I have my beautiful panel joining me today. Bonita, can you say hi to the people and introduce yourself, please?
Hi, everybody. I'm Bonita Penn. I'm out of Pittsburgh. I'm a poet and retired.
Even though she still does conferences and speaks, and we see her all over, but okay, she's retired today. Hi, Tiffany, could you introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. I'm from Ohio. I'm Tiffany. Sports and Hills is kind of what I go by as my handle. I am the resident traveler slash sports enthusiast slash official, sports official for USA Track and Field. Also, a remote techie girl, just kind of trying to survive like everybody else. So nice to meet everybody.
Yeah. Actually, if you want to check out Tiffany, I have an interview on my channel about her. We talk about sports tourism, and also I get into her business a little bit if anybody's interested in that. Amina, please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Amina Hanan. I am the community manager for Exodus ASAP, which is a membership for Black women looking to expedite their move abroad. This week, I got my Mexican residency, so I'm really happy about that.
Period.
And I'm just happy to be here.
And we happy
I'm in
you're here
Chicago
too.
right now.
And it was your birthday over the weekend, wasn't it? Happy birthday.
Yes, my birthday yesterday.
Oh, happy birthday.
Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I see y'all in the chat. Black folk, we speak as we come into the room, so please drop down in the comments and say hi to us as we have this discussion. I hear an echo. Do y'all hear an echo?
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Nothing? Okay. As we have this discussion, if you have any comments or questions, drop down in the comments and let us know what you think about it. I see y'all. Oh, hello. Congrats on the residency, Amina. Yes.
Thank you, Khadijah. Thank you.
Hi, Alicia. Hi, Khadijah. Hi, Nikki. Hi, Vibe. Hey. All right, y'all. So let's get into it. Sky Full of Elephants. Did we like it? Yes or no? What are we thinking? Tiffany, you don't. No comment? No comment already?
Oh, you want me to kick it off?
I said yes or no.
What I
I
think?
said yes or no.
I mean,
You were like, Oh, you going out? Nope.
I liked it. There were aspects. I'm sorry. There were aspects I really liked. Um, I'm leaning. I'm leaning more towards liking it because of there were so many aspects that I really appreciated and liked. Um, but there were some aspects that I did not like at all. So I'm gonna say like because if there was a odometer, I would lean more towards like. Um, but there were a lot of things that I could have did without, basically. So yeah,
Okay.
like entertaining, eye roll, a lot of that.
Nikki says that she was disappointed. Um, Alicia says it was great until the last few chapters. This is an interesting reception. I thought, I had different thoughts. So, Bonita, can you share what were your first impressions, your overall impression?
Well, my overall impression was, of course, I did not like it. Um, I the what I didn't like about it was that the main character, could not escape the white gaze. Like something about him could not imagine a world with just black people living like regular humans. And then I didn't particularly like his daughter at all. And then the way that he sometimes dismissed when he got down into Alabama and they were talking about the African spiritual traditions that they do. He was talking like magic was some little trick that they did. He had no respect for the ancestry history. And that's what I got from him. And I just didn't like it at all. I did it just took a whole different route to what I thought it was going to be. I thought it was going to focus on the new world without white folks in the white gaze. But what I did like, only thing I did like was that like the black communities were like going on with their life with no problem.
Okay, we have someone joining us. Let me add her. Oh wait, I didn't mean to. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Wait,
Too many
wait.
people. Too many
I
people.
apologize. There's too many people. Wait,
Girl, you cycling through everybody now. You
I
just cycling.
know. I know. Let me. I apologize. Let me get it together. I'm adding new people, and my button is covered. So hi
Hey,
everybody.
sorry I'm late.
It's okay. I apologize for that, everybody. D, can you introduce yourself really quickly?
Hey, I'm Dee Watkins. I run a business, Brown Girls Invest Too. I'm also accountability partners with Keyoka. And what? And I am not as avid a reader as you guys are, but I'm here. Let's see what happens.
Overall, we're talking through first impressions of the book. How did you feel? Did you like it? Did you
Yeah.
not like it?
No, not at all. Not at all. It was horrible. It was actually painful to read. And I'm gonna be honest, I didn't even finish the thing. I couldn't. It was painful. It was not good for me at all.
Same. I also did not finish, and yet I'm leading a discussion on it. So here we are. Amina.
Well, I mean, you made the attempt, right? And if that's the consensus, if you can't get through it, you can't get through it. That's just the end of that.
Fair. Amina, you also said that you did not like the book. So what were your impressions? What about it did you not like?
Um, in the beginning, I was like, "Oh, they all walk into the water. Awesome!" And I was like, "Okay, let's see if it hasn't happened."
Honestly, that's why I picked the book up to begin with. I was like, wait a minute, I like this
Yeah, I was
idea.
like, "Oh yeah," but like Bonita, I thought that it would focus more on the hereafter, the life after they gone. And then I was disappointed to hear that some of them were still alive in other places. I was disappointed about that part. And then just the
Yeah.
whole tragic mulatto thing with the daughter, that could have been written totally different and still had the same aspects of the father being absent. That could have taken on a totally different thing. And then just her in the Ku Klux Klan outfit. And I was just like, how come these white people in the South just can't be regular old Southern black folk down here? It was a lot. It's like he was just throwing
Alabama
in
too.
just like everything. And then, like you said, the kente cloth. It was just too much, y'all. It was too much and not enough.
I'm
Right. Not
curious,
enough.
did anyone get through the entire thing? Like I know what
I
happened
got through it.
ultimately.
I got through it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, very good, very good. Yeah, I
So
couldn't do
so
it.
but Tiffany, since you said that there were elements of it that you did like, can you touch on what you liked about it?
The elements I liked is how they built out, like she mentioned earlier, how Black folks continue and created this ongoing community amongst each other, and how it was surrounded by the concept of loving each other and moving forward, right? Not not looking to find out what happened, just like, okay, this is what happened, this is what we're going to do now. And we saw that when they got to the airport, we how they were explaining how things go. Um, you know, that at how the character developed, the characters that we ran into during that time, during their journey, were just how loving and embracing that Black folks are and continue to be, even despite this thing that had happened, and how their gaze didn't switch to, oh, what are we going to do, but okay, let's figure out what do we really want for ourselves in this kind of life, right? What do we do now for us, and how do we build the communities we've always wanted? And we saw a difference from Chicago versus a difference from Alabama, right? That was one aspect that I really, really loved. The second thing that I really, really loved is the fact, go ahead, was
No,
the
I
fact
second
that, okay, that fact that Black women continue to be like the focal, spiritual knowledge point, that there's an acknowledgement there, right? That the Black
Mhm.
woman in all of these communities are kind of like, that's who you go to find out what's next, what kind of life we want for ourselves. They're kind of like the spiritual, connected to the ancestors, but also connected to the future. I love that aspect because they're very earth driven, grounded. Like that's where everyone kind of looked to, right? So we had
Right.
these great other characters that I mean, my mind went down the rabbit hole of, I really embraced and connected to that part of the story.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the idea of imagining a life where that could really happen, like being in a place where that could happen, right?
Right.
I enjoyed and connected to what kind of relief those people felt in the book, right? When they were talking about their circumstances. Um, I could connect to that. I also kind of can connect to the tragic mulatto story, not for myself, but I do have a daughter that's mixed race. So some of her conversations with herself, and some of the battles that she had in herself, I could connect to because I've heard it before, right? But not to the aspect that was in the book. I could appreciate some of that. I felt like there were two different stories, right? I felt like he kind of took eight different stories and made them into one, and I could have dealt with eight different stories. One story of her journey with herself after life, that life, right? Reconnecting and finding out who she is. That was a whole nother book, right? The father, he incarcerated, gets out, deals with this, connecting with his daughter. That was a whole nother story, right? And then the life of those in the communities were a whole entire story of their own. So um, I kind of focused on what I liked, and I literally just kind of quickly read through the parts I didn't like, and just kind of
Okay.
discarded it, if that makes sense. I really wanted to, you know what I mean? Like I really wanted to know more about how these people moved forward, and they were just. I could feel the happiness. You know what I mean? I could feel the happiness and the joy and the relief. And
Mm-hmm.
then that's what I connected to, and that's the part I liked. So that's what I liked. I never thought about it in that sense. So that's what I really liked. And then,
But I don't think the author, I think I hear everything you're saying, and I think if he had left it there, then it would have been a great story. You know? So like there was definitely a shift for me where I started to strongly dislike the book. And it was probably when when he left Chicago.
yep, me
Um
too.
because I think there wasn't enough time. We didn't have enough time in that space where you have black people just rebuilding and taking advantage of this newfound freedom.
Mm-hmm.
And then you go into other parts of the US and, like Mississippi, right? That depiction of Mississippi and that listlessness and that like them still being almost like stuck in time and um I really didn't like that, and I think it's because I'm from Louisiana with ties to Mississippi, and it just really seemed like a really surface level depiction of what life looks like for Southern Black folk. Like, as if we, without the white folk to chide us along, are just gonna fall apart and stop life, stop movement. I think also while we love community building, and I think as Black people in general, we do take from not take from other cultures, but we are flexible. We bend towards other cultures and their traditions, and we take it and make it our own. So there's obviously elements of African and Caribbean, and it's all black, right? But the idea that this black man who's a black American has to journey to get around some Africans and Caribbeans to learn how to love himself was a little problematic for me, because I'm a black person who likes being black and is familiar with black history and knows the contributions that we've made in this country in spite of white people. So you have this guy who essentially, I didn't understand all of the sort of guilt that he was feeling toward the beginning of the book, because you know they did him wrong. They did him wrong. So why does he not necessarily, like, obviously we find out that he had a hand in creating the machine, that, but he didn't know that in the beginning, and he was still walking around carrying guilt that this thing happened to all the white people. I didn't understand that, especially considering how he ended up in jail.
Well, I mean, it makes me think about how a lot of brothers online use rhetoric, and they live their lifestyles based on this that kind of anger and disdain for their own and their own communities, while having a center or a mind that's thinking about that white gaze that we talked about earlier. I feel like it, that wasn't a surprise to me.
Mm.
It wasn't a surprise to me at all. I mean, if you listen to what happens on social media and how people, I know, black men kind of talk sometimes, it sounded, the conversation that he was having with us and himself sounded very similar to the conversations you hear on podcasts online. So it wasn't a surprise to me that he was having that struggle
That's why we
with
about to
that
have a
self
new
hate and not
rule. We about to have
his
a new
community.
rule: no more books by black men. We low
Uh,
key
Wait
it,
a
getting
minute.
it
Take it
close.
easy.
it's very
Getting
toxic.
close.
It's very toxic. It's the way of thinking is very toxic, and it's, we don't know much about his family, and why he felt the way he felt. It just came out of like nowhere. Um, and so that's why I say how I say it, because that's often hidden when you listen to, podcasters talk or some guys talk. It's often hidden that they're angry at their mother or their father or something like that,
Yes.
but they take it out on their community.
Yeah.
Um, and so that's why I felt like, oh, okay, I've seen this before. Like, you can say it in different languages, you can say it in different ways, but it all comes out to the same thing. We don't know why, but it's he's very strong in his opinions, right? If you listen to him talk, he when he was talking, he was so passionate about this being so wrong. And all of a sudden he has this weird moral compass that, I don't know. I mean, I know he was thinking about his daughter, but bro, your daughter got you and you too. So that's why it didn't make any sense. I'm like, I kind of like was like, where is this coming from? So I feel like it was very relatable to what I've heard, narratives I've heard online. It was like in the same family. It might have been the same thing, but it might have been his cousin of the same narratives.
Yeah,
Benita, you
because
had
that's
something?
yeah, because that's interesting. Because when we're talking, I keep forgetting that I'm reading the character through the eyes of a black woman. I'm reading about a black man, and I
Yeah.
forget how. Well, I don't really forget how they think, but this is like a book, and I'm thinking like maybe he'll think right in the book, but he, but he, but
Maybe he'll
he,
act
Whatever
like he
happened?
got some
but he,
sense.
The
but
whole thing was so
person was written
disjointed.
by a man too. So, but I just didn't understand why he couldn't see it. It's like, why was he so angry, and why was he so angry that black people were just like living la di da, like they were at peace with who they were, and why couldn't he be at peace just being who he was? Why was he still so angry? And one more thing before, when they walked in the water, I felt that was disrespectful to black people because the water is a sacred place for some of us.
Speak about
Yeah.
it.
And I
Yeah.
did not like that at
Yeah, don't
all.
be polluting the waters now.
Maybe the ancestors
But
were calling them to the sea to drown them.
no, they could have did something. I could have went up in flames or something. I'm not really sure, but
Oh
I
dear.
thought, but I thought that was quite disrespectful also. But I didn't understand his anger because, like, you wake up and you see this world where, as a black man, you should be relieved that you don't have this white thing on your shoulder all the time. And dude was just he wouldn't let go of that slave mentality that he had.
Woo. So who do we think this book is for?
It wasn't for
White
us,
people.
that's for
Because
sure.
it doesn't seem like we
It was
all.
for white people.
Well,
Yeah, I agree with
He
Tiffany.
wrote
Yeah.
He
The
wrote it
white
for white
people that
people.
paid him to write
And
it.
honestly, if it's for
It
white people and your lead thing is y'all gonna walk in the water, you done missed the mark in the
no,
beginning.
really.
You know.
But I have like when we were preparing for this discussion, I've done a little bit of research on some of the reviews, and
Okay.
there's a lot of white people who are championing this book as this is the black experience. We're getting to see inside the eyes of this is how black people feel. So
course.
it because I do think like um this is a very specific story, right? It's the story of a biracial girl, but then it's also a black man struggling with his identity, right? And not being connected to himself. And to go back to Tiffany's point about like falling into these spaces where you like are like self-hating and you hate women, it comes from not having a true identity within yourself. You know, you fall for anything. What is that saying?
If you
You
don't stand
stand
for
for
something, you'll
something.
fall for
You're
anything.
You
exactly.
fall for it.
So that's why we have a lot of like black Trumpers, child, or that's why we have a lot of anything, right? You could use anything. Religion, like the people who really get into religion and oppress others, it's the same kind of mentality because they don't know who they are themselves. They don't have their own opinions. They can't think critically. And I think that's what we see him struggling with throughout the book in a very surface way because I don't think he did any really deep work to
No.
But you know
to
who
get answers.
who he wrote this for too?
That's
His
why.
biracial wife.
Yes,
I'm telling you, it's
I saw that.
always a connection,
Yeah.
y'all. It's always going to go back to why we didn't have his character, the stereotypes that he used. I mean, father went to prison from raping a white girl. Come on. I mean, you can't get more stereotypical than that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the struggles of the biracial woman, he was so in and out, weaved in and out. It's like he sat down and interviewed her to help so she helped him develop that character of Sydney, right? It was just there were things it was
I almost
you,
wish
he
he would have wrote it
right.
then. I almost because I
Yeah.
feel like coming from her, maybe it would have been received differently. But I think it's because it almost feels like this infatuation with whiteness, this like fetishization almost of his
Mm-hmm.
biracial wife and his biracial daughter, which is kind
Mm-hmm.
of weird to me. I
But
don't know if
doesn't
anybody
that
else
happen
got that.
in real life though? But doesn't that happen in real life?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I said.
Yeah.
It might not be the same thing, but it's in the same family.
Yeah, because
Well,
when I watched his interview he did with Jason Reynolds, and Jason asked him something about how did you find something or something or something. And he said, well, like Tiffany said, I spoke to my wife and she told me about how she felt about her white half. And I'm like, I was getting ready to turn the interview off when I heard that. But I was like, no, let me just act right and just listen to what the man got to say. But I figured it was something like that, which is nothing wrong, but it's just not for me. And I don't know. And it just confirms me that maybe black men have issues with that white gaze. Maybe they can't get away from it. I mean, I just don't know what's
I'm not
going
gonna
on
say
with them.
all black. I'm not gonna say all black men, and I'm not gonna
Well,
look at
yeah,
podcasts as a way of looking through a prism. Because to me, I look at like podcasts as like social media, like it's not real life. Like people can be
it's
whoever
not.
they want to be online. And you'll be surprised at the lives that people are really living once they step away from those microphones.
Mm-hmm.
It's nothing like, even like if we look at like Kevin Samuels, you know, the stuff that he touted on that mic, and to see how he died. Like, you could be whatever you want to be online, and
But
it's
also
mostly
people have a negative bias, right? So like the content that performs really well online is salacious and it's very negative. So a lot of
Yeah.
people who have these big platforms, a lot of men who have big platforms where they talk badly about black women, they're doing very well because it's the algorithm. It's people clicking on things that are jarring, but it's not a representation of real life. I think that's where we're in that place right now where people are confusing the two. Because even I've seen that out in the real world, talking to men just in
Mm-hmm.
general, child, which I try not to do a lot. But gosh, but talking to them, I'm like, huh? But what does your sister think? What does your cousin like? You don't have no cousins you could talk to about this. Like, y'all need
Mm-hmm.
friends. A lot of y'all need
I,
friends.
I guess I
But
have a more skewed perspective because I'm in the sports world, and so they they tend to say things around me that they may not say, you know, around anybody else but their homeboys. And so I have an inside track into their thinking for a very long time now, very very long time.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I said it might not be the same thing. I'm not saying all, it's an all black man issue. Definitely not. As I know all kinds of different black men. We're not a monolith. Whether it's a black woman,
Right.
black man, we're not a monolith. However, Shannon Sharp is about to lose his $50 million career over his gays.
and I would
I'm not.
expect that.
I'm
That
just
ain't no
I would
saying.
gays
expect
though.
that from Shannon
That's not.
Sharp. I would expect that from him. And again,
I do
sports,
too.
that's a small percentage.
sport.
And when you go with the sports trope, you do meet the people like Shannon Sharp. You do meet the men who exclusively say this is my preference.
But
That's
the average
again.
man, they idolize sports tropes. And so a lot of them who are not in the circle imitate what they see in the circle. I'm seeing people who could never be what those guys are, but they imitate the lifestyles of those guys.
Some of them do. That we're not a monolith. But I would
Well,
No, right.
expect
let's.
Some of them
I
do.
would
But I'm
everything
talking
that
about
comes with Shannon Sharp, I would expect it. Just from just looking at him. I'm sorry.
Don't he
Just
look
looking at
like
him.
he
I would
looks like? Listen,
expect it.
I wasn't surprised about anything at
I,
all.
I, I was not surprised at all.
At all. But like, let's really back in, right? To go back to the book. So, if we compared Charlie to a character like the King of Alabama, because we could say that this is a black
yeah.
man. He's also a black man who's married, who has children, who's a present father, and he doesn't struggle with his identity in the same way. What labor do we think that's doing in the book? What do we feel like? What do we feel like that kind of character brings to the story?
I think that's who he wants to be. He wants to be the black man who's um, family man, respected in his community. He wants to be that, but he's using the prison. And again, we don't know anything else about his upbringing. So all I can think of, it must be his experience of going to prison, but which we also don't hear a lot about. So we don't know what prison did to him. We can speculate all we want, but obviously, in my mind, there was some kind of breaking that happened in the prison process, um, along with whoever he was before this. Because again, we don't know anything about who he was other than what her mother wrote in the letter and what he tells us. We know nothing about this man. So I think that's who he aspires to be and just can't connect to that. So he just observes him and spits out what he sees. He's just a observer of who this other man was, who he wanted to be.
One thing I thought that coming from Chicago, going into Alabama, which was a no-fly zone, like it immediately gave me my stereotypical thoughts of Alabama. That's why it was a no-fly zone. So why did they consider Alabama a no-fly zone? That's my one question. But when he met the guy Hosea, who was the king, and the king was the type of man who like okay, like not all black men are the same. He was different from Charlie, so he was different from Sailor, and even he was different from some of his sons. But to me, when I looked at him, he was like the black man who I would envision like all black men would try to be like more family orientated, community orientated, um, and who was just about his people.
Fair.
I mean that's how I saw him. You know.
Fair. I think I agree with that, and I also saw that as well. I think my trouble with it was we don't really see Charlie doing the work to become a Hosea, doing that self exploration. We saw him take a bath and put on some kente cloth and
Yeah.
just I mean, it's not because and there's a part on here that I've been holding off adding in, right? But the reason why Hosea is able to even ascend to be a king is because his wife pushed him along, who gave
Mm-hmm.
him direction.
Mm-hmm.
That's really what happened. I mean, and honestly, again, looking at this book as a black woman, I want to know more about her
Me
Amen.
because
too.
Yeah.
it really seemed like she gave you culture. She gave you spiritual practices. She gave you a purpose. She gave you a vote of confidence for people to follow you because nobody was
Mm-hmm.
trying to follow him and listen to things that he was saying until his wife started to, in the beginning when they were setting things up.
Mm-hmm.
She did a lot. But I wonder in this new world, if we think about the portrayal of women, how much leadership and how much agency they actually have. Because yes, they could be spiritual. Yes, they, can, do Sydney's hair and tell her, oh, you's nice, you smart, whatever. But
You is kind, you is
use
smart.
kind. But it's not like, she's not the Empress of Alabama with her husband as her minion. That's not what happened.
Again, I think this is a reflection of his household. This author, he admires black women. I think a lot of I think his wife is probably the take charge type. She's probably a very involved type. So, you know, at the end of the day, she might be biracial, but can be a black woman, and I think he still admires black women. That's why there's that acknowledgement of their leadership skills and their pushing and driving and comforting and loving and nurturing, because all of that you can't deny that in any way, shape, or form, right? So I think there's still an acknowledgement there. Um, so I connected to that part of who the black women were in this book. But I kind of saw her like the Oracle in Matrix.
And
You
that's what I
know,
was going to say. I didn't receive her as a leader. I received her as some mystical creature who comes out of the tree and sprinkles some
Mm-hmm.
black girl magic all over the place. Like, she's not, when we think about power, when we think about who is building this new future,
Mm-hmm.
it's the men. The men are the leaders. They're the ones organizing, repairing the solar system, whatever. They're the ones actually building the infrastructure. The women hang out and they smoke whatever they were smoking, and they do each other's hair. And he
Mm-hmm.
let. If we think about even what happened with Sydney, he let his wife decide what to do with her. That's women's business.
Yeah, because I think the men were doing the manual work,
I was going to say they were
but
doing the manual
really
muscle.
the women, even though they was relaxing and maxing, they really did the mental work.
Right. They
You
were the
know,
decision makers. They were the
yes,
decision makers. The men were just the
yeah,
muscle.
I don't
yeah.
know that they were the decision maker. I didn't get that.
I'm sorry. Listening to all
He
of
wouldn't
this,
even have
a
built
lot
the
of these
thing if it hadn't
stories
been
just
for
seem
this woman.
all of the stories seem so disjointed to me. Think about how many things you don't know about him, or how many things you don't know about the black women. You didn't build enough character
Yeah.
of
Mm-hmm.
each person to cobble this together in a way that it made sense for me. It was all completely unrealistic. I mean, obviously, you ain't gonna have nobody go a whole group of folk go walk off into the water, but
You don't know
you
that.
there was opportunity there to speak to what happened
Amina,
if, and none of that was done.
Who said
Amina
that?
said she was disappointed that it did, that everybody
Look,
didn't go.
you don't get my hopes up telling me what's, and then and
Yeah.
I don't want to say something else. Keyoka, you said you did some research and they said this was, certain folks received this very well. Do you know a few years ago there was a movie called White Man's Burden? That was not received
Mm.
very well at all.
Was Harry
Because,
Belafonte?
pardon me?
Was Harry Belafonte in that?
Ugh, I forgot. It's in
Okay.
1995
A few
or
Okay.
in
years
the
ago.
90s somewhere.
Try a few decades. Let me Google that. Isn't that a remake though?
Well, it was
I'm
a
sorry.
poem to
Continue.
begin with, years and years ago from Kipling, but it was when that came out, then nobody liked that idea, right? Because you're getting what you deserve or afraid of getting what you deserve, right? Or the treatment that you've given to other folks. And then in this opportunity, I mean, I don't understand how you don't
Drop the ball.
put more of the pressure on those other folks versus making Black folks feel this way, especially Black women.
Well, I can't wait to see how they develop the movie for this because trust me, this is going to be picked up as a
They
movie.
better not.
I
You
Look
think
hope
out for
so?
not.
It's
That
gonna be a
they
movie.
I hope
love doing.
not.
They
Watch.
love doing stuff
Because
like
this
that.
might have been a short story that he wrote, and then somebody filled his head with it could be a book, and then
Not fill his head.
he just added a lot of words to make it a book length short story.
Just add some words.
It's one of those books after I finished reading it, I wanted to rewrite it. Have you ever read a book and you wanted to rewrite it after you what's the lady that wrote The Secret Life of Bees? Like after I read that, I read a couple of her books and I was like, she could have rewrote this and this could have been totally different. After I read that book,
What would you do differently?
it's been a while, but I would do a lot differently with that. I
No, for
hated
this.
the
What would
movie
you
after
do
the book.
differently?
Oh,
Yeah, for this.
with this, oh, um, everybody would be gone, and maybe they wouldn't walk off into the sea. Maybe they would just disappear one day and be like, "What happened to them people?" And it would be like a distant memory kind of thing. I think I would center monoracial Black people differently. I think I would center Black Americans differently. Just a lot. I would do a lot different. A lot different.
I
Yeah.
would have stayed in Chicago. That would have been
That's the
eventually going into the, that would have been
Right.
eventually going to the South, but that would have been a whole nother book. You know what I mean? That would have made you want to see what the South looked like. But I would have stayed in Chicago and talked about the communities and the characters. Like, I would have stayed there to see how they built it and then gone to the South and had a completely different contrast. Because it was like, I kind of felt like when he went to Alabama, it was like Chicago was all modern and this and that, and Alabama was like they was living in the woods, butt naked with sticks and cloths on again. You know what I'm saying? Like that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not saying that's what they did, but that's in my mind. That's what I pictured that they were kind of like, you know, uh, Avatar. What's that movie?
Avatar.
Avatar.
Avatar. It was like Chicago, and then it was Avatar. That's what I felt like. So you know what I'm saying? Because Avatar was all magical and they had the tree with the magic.
No,
And
but
I
I was
mine
like,
refuse to
feel like
watch
that.
that.
None of
I
that
refuse
magic.
to watch that movie.
That makes
I,
sense.
I, I felt like it could have. I think it could have been several books. I think if he would have built it out properly, I think it could have been a bunch of books. Then I could see it being a movie, but the movie would never get picked up. But I could see it being a movie. It wouldn't get picked up. It definitely wouldn't get picked up. But we could have seen it become a movie.
Okay.
I
What
can't
do
wait.
we think about, because we kind of touched on it a little bit, but what do we think about the African and Caribbean Caribbeans in Alabama.
That might have been just his way of bringing in his wife's people, or just bringing in like outside of that, of just bringing in history, because sometimes black folks in America, we don't feel that we have a history,
Mm-hmm.
that we don't feel we have it, so we have to go back to those places that our people came from and take their history and bring it here. So maybe that was it, because our history wasn't good enough to to uplift again and to build new towns on.
I
Yeah.
always wonder why Caribbeans are seen as having more history and culture than Black Americans.
Mm-hmm.
I've always wondered that.
They were able to hold on to it longer than we were.
Hmm. And
Um,
plus,
But it
some of
but it
the
also
revolutions, the rebellions were more so than what we were told that happened over here on this piece of land too.
but when you
but
really
we
study the history and the culture, there we had rebellions, we had things, and even if you just want to go into just the present day, if there is no us here, there's no nobody else here. Our
Hmm.
struggles made it possible. We swept the floor, as some people say, for other people to be over here. When you think
Amen.
about
Right.
culture, and when you think about American culture, when you think about the world culture, when people say black people, they're talking about black Americans, people born here.
Sure.
They're not talking about nobody else. When people
Mm.
talk about black music, and even how when people come here from other countries, after a couple of generations, they see, unless they're in an argument or having a conversation, they see themselves as us too. So
I,
the fact that people think that we don't have a culture and a history always befuddles me. And I'm just like,
I,
I just really wish that we would kind of like focus on like, when we in our writings and in our and even in our ancestor practices and spiritual practices, I wish we would center that more. I really wish we do. There's a sister, she wrote the Hoodoo Tarot deck. I can't think of her name. I know her last name is Miller. I can't think of her
Mhm.
first name. But in one of her books, she said that you can ask a black person about spirituality and deities, and they can name all type of deities from Africa and different places, but they can never
Mhm.
talk about people here. And a lot of times
Mhm.
when I approach those conversations with people, I ask them, I say, well, can you tell me a full set of great grandparents' names? If you can't do that, then we can't have this conversation. Go do some more research. Go do some more history. Because you just out here just grabbing at stuff because it look good to you. But that's
And I
not you.
think I think a lot of not a lot. I think there are some black people um, who have issues saying that black folks don't have culture, black Americans don't have culture. Also, see how there's a lot of assimilation to in alignment with white culture, or white being a white person in America. Um, and so when they see opposite of that in Caribbean culture, they compare the two because they don't see the alignment with white culture maybe as much as they see it in Black American culture, even though we have our own culture, and that's not even up for debate. But I think there is an alignment that they're living in, right? That they don't see from the Caribbean side. They only get it when they go on a cruise, right? I hear
Mhm.
comments like, look at how they do this A, B, C, and D, and it's different than us. And they see that disalignment, and they think they have more culture than we do because it is not aligned with the culture that they're used to. That's aligned more with white culture, right? That with that assimilation of white culture. Not to say that we don't have ours that's not assimilated with theirs, but
Mhm.
in the grand scheme of things, it's different. It looks different, and so it looks more uniform than it does over here, right?
It looks
So I
different
think
over there
but
because they're not in America. But when you come to
correct,
when people come to America, it's just the
correct,
same. It's just because Americas. It's
right.
a totally different place.
but this is something that Toni Morrison has written about extensively, right? It's because we're using whiteness as the foundation.
Mm-hmm.
So everything that veers away from whiteness by comparison is ethnic, is
Hmm.
something other than. So therefore, people who have access to culture are people who are farther away from whiteness. But because Black American culture has developed under the oppression of whiteness, it in some ways can kind of mirror or be similar to it. So that's why there's this assumption that we just don't have it or that our culture was taken from us. I brought this up not to be divisive, but I see that a lot happening, like where it's almost like other people across the diaspora are exalted because they have been able to hold on to their cultures, when in fact, like it's Black Americans have always had a culture. We have always been able to connect with other people, and I think one very American element of our culture is that we've been able to take practices and take things from different cultures and adapt it to our own. It's this like flexibility that lends itself to being something that people can then take and profit off of, right? It could be a good thing because it allows us to survive in places where, like in the South, how we have Asian communities and how we have Hispanic communities, and those people aren't living so separate from each other. We're living as one. We're working together, and we're taking bits and pieces from different cultures, and we're living together. But at the same time, as somebody said, other people will come into this country and profit off of the labor of Black Americans and then not even give us credit for it. That's what gets on my nerves. And I think in this book in particular, it irritates me that in a journey where we're supposed to be trying to find out our identity as a Black man, as a biracial woman, we're looking to outside sources instead of looking within our own communities. He left Chicago, which is one of our Black meccas, to go find himself. Essentially, it's the hero's journey. He's going to go find himself. So is his daughter, right? Essentially, he needed to go away from one of the most advanced Black cities to go into the South, to go around some Africans and some Caribbeans, to learn how to love himself, to learn how to love himself, to go find himself, and put on his magic kente cloak. That's what.
And he still didn't do it.
And he still didn't do it.
Still did.
It was just, it wasn't good. I don't know.
We need to write more, y'all.
Were there characters that we wanted to see more of? Like, is there any one character who had a story in particular that you're like, I would read an entire book about that person?
Well, it's not an entire book, but Jose's oldest son, he didn't like Sydney one bit. And I might have skimmed over something, I'm not sure. But why didn't he like her? I mean, I don't care, but I want to know why he immediately just didn't like the girl.
Well, I mean, she told him what she was there to do. So why are you looking for these white people? I wouldn't like you neither. Why do you care about these white people?
Because I feel like there's some people who gonna get it and some people who not gonna get it. You know?
Yeah. I think that's why he was like her. She was like, I'm looking for my white grandmama or whoever she was looking for. And he's like, well, what? Like what? What's the reason? I don't understand.
It was her auntie. She was looking for her auntie, and I think it was her auntie and like all the
like
random
they don't want you. Why you? They don't want you. We got a whole life here. Like, what are you doing? Like, how can you be around all these people?
Because that's all she knew.
But I'm thinking like she was like straight up like, I am white. Even after she found out her dad, she still did not change from that. So I'm thinking that her mindset is that she's a white girl. So when that machine was turned on, why didn't she walk off into the water too? Because she was like, I am white. Like her whole mind said it. Her whole mind said it. So what did the machine not catch when it went to her mother and then bounced off of her? What happened?
Her magical DNA.
One drop, baby.
One drop. See that one drop save your life.
That must not be me.
That's what it was. But but I like to look at things in terms of just like reality and things that are going on in the world. And when you look at how many and I got this is totally off social media because most of the quote unquote mixed people that I know are not like this. Biracial people I know are not like this, and maybe because they are surrounded by so many black people.
Hmm.
But when you see these people that go on TikTok and they be like, my mother and my father met my mother and had me and just abandoned me, and I've been living with these racist white people and they can't stand me, and they like would
Right.
that person be saved from walking off in the water? Those people exist and they grow
They do.
up and yeah.
They do. They definitely exist. And they definitely struggle with not understanding, not connecting to the black side, right? They don't. There's no connection there. And it's if this was to happen, there would be a lot more than y'all think. That's all I can say.
Mm,
There'll be a lot
No,
probably.
more than you
I
think that would.
I
100%.
believe it.
We just saw an
You mean a
interview
lot
with
more
Patrick.
Sydneys? Is that what you're saying? A lot more Sydneys?
A lot more Sydney's thinking. Yeah, a lot more mulatto or
I
mixed
can see
people
that.
who would think more like Sydney. And think about Patrick Mahomes. He just did an interview when he was talking about his hair and
His
saying,
nappy hair.
how could y'all have me walking around with nappy hair? This boy has three A, three B, hair, far from nappy, but there's a disconnect there. That if his entire family, like think about Sydney, her entire family, she watched her entire family, brothers, little brothers, mama, all of them, walk into the water. She go in after them, right? She tried to drown herself and go with them, and she couldn't. And now it's like, well, why? I know what happened. Why didn't it happen to me? Because there's a thought process that I'm just like them. Even she said it even during the book when she was
She
talking about,
did.
how she was treated differently in the town that she grew up in. She couldn't
Hmm.
understand. It couldn't even fathom to her that she would be treated any differently than her family. Even at the church where she was giving. Remember, she said she was, oh, I was giving. We were giving to the poor or
Hmm.
the
Um,
unfortunate. And she was like, we were given to the unfortunate. And one of the ladies came up to her and said, here.
Gave it
And she
to
thought,
her.
I was one of the unfortunate. How could she think I was one of the unfortunate? You know what I'm saying? Like that's the mindset.
Yeah.
That's the
That's the
thought
world
process
telling
she's
you you
having.
black.
That it's
Yeah.
these
And it
things
will
that happen to
tell you
these other
that.
people, it's not
Right.
applicable to me. Like, are you kidding me?
Hmm.
No, this doesn't happen to me. And then it's happening to her. So there's a lot of resolution that we saw during the book. And that's what I'm pretty sure that was the part that he wrote, keep going, honey. Tell me more about these kind of experiences that you had. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm.
That's why I was just kind of like rolling my eyes, like, yeah, go in the water with them. Like,
so then, when you think about children like that, what about children who are adopted by white parents and they have the same experience, but they are monoracial? Like,
Oh,
I don't know. That's why
probably.
I say it's so many things in that book that book could have addressed, and it would have taken several volumes. But yeah,
Well, I don't think he would be the one to write it, though.
no,
no,
But
absolutely not.
definitely
when she did go to Orange Beach and she found those people, and it's like every other day they were trying to go into the water and drown themselves, because for some sort of way they felt that they were being punished by not being taken. It's like they didn't know what was wrong with them. Like why didn't God take us too? Why are we being punished? And they had that thing where they go in the water trying to drown themselves every other day. That doesn't work. And it's just like, I don't know. It's just that just bothered me. I mean, I know there are people out there like that, but it's like they can't accept that they do have black in their DNA. It's like, what's the big deal?
And then just because then that's a question of identity too, because just because you have black in your DNA, does that make you black culturally?
Well, it
No.
depends on how brown you are.
Ask Candace.
According
I
to
mean,
Yes,
according
it
to
depends on how brown you are.
Ask Candace.
according to the society that we're living in, that they were living in, it depends on how brown you are. I know people who are not that brown, and if you saw them, you would not know. And so there is not a, if you are not making a declaration, hello, I am
Mhm.
a ABCD, and you're walking through life with the mind that Sydney has. Remember, Sydney must be very passing because, or a little
Mhm.
somewhat passing, right? Because she cannot identify with the people not like seeing that she's
That
not
she,
one
If
of
my
them.
baby gave her that thing for the homeless, I'm thinking she probably not that passing. Because usually
yeah.
white
Well,
people
I
they have
didn't.
she's
a hard time
she
identifying with
is enough to
passing.
where she didn't get a whole lot, but she's because there's a difference, right? We are not all, there's a spectrum of biracial. There's not all light, there's not all dark.
Mhm.
So they get variations of it, right? They're not going to get straight out. You da, 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 da. They're not going to get that. They're going to get variations of the microaggressions, right? It's not going to be the same one. So obviously, she's enough to where she can acknowledge that there's a difference, but she doesn't understand. There's a disconnect on why she doesn't understand the
I
difference.
don't think your tone has to do with that. I think that has to do with your mindset, period, right? Because there are
No.
people my color that may not identify with being black, period.
But
Just
that's
because they
totally
don't.
different. That's a totally different conversation. Because if you're a black person who doesn't identify with other black people, you have other stuff going on. If you're a
True.
biracial, if you're a biracial who doesn't identify as a black person, it probably has something to do with who your mama is. I'm gonna just say that.
Right. Right.
Because because I think culture passes through the mother. So if you have a mom who understands black history, is okay with being black, and surrounds herself with other black people, no matter what you look like, you will be around black people. If you are um if you have, because I'm thinking about Meghan Markle, right? Meghan Markle, her mom, I think, saw that she could pass to an extent and saw that she would have access. And so she didn't really, I think she knows her immediate family members, but she didn't really surround Megan around a lot of black people. It took her
Sure.
marrying Prince Harry to understand what the black folk in the US were going around. Watch that documentary on Netflix. But I think it depends on how much your mother teaches you how to engage with your black side for biracial people. Now,
But
for
we're missing a key element, and that's the absence of the black father. She not only she lived in Utah, right? That's where she lived, Utah. So she lived in a predominantly white neighborhood. She had no access to blackness in her family because she didn't have the presence of a father. um, and she didn't have a black community. So it's not just the mother, it's not just the parent, it's also the access to that community. Like she wasn't even told that she was biracial. She knew she was biracial because of the difference in her hair texture and some other things she identified, but she didn't know that she wasn't one of them. She kept saying it throughout the book that she did not know she wasn't one of them. There were markers, but she couldn't connect the markers.
I think I
and
I do think it's community, but the reason why I say it depends on the mother is because men don't really, so obviously not all men, right? But when we think about how impactful a man is in transferring culture onto their children, it's very specific. It's
mhm.
very it really depends. It's literally a case by case basis. You can't say if somebody has a black father they're immediately black, just because maybe that black father isn't bringing their children around the black side of the family. Maybe that black father has his own internalized racism that he's dealing with, which is why he partner white. It's too, because if a black woman partners white, that doesn't mean she hates herself. But for whatever reason, you have a lot of black men out there partnering white and they hate themselves. We have different experiences. I'm not sure why. This is not an analysis on that, but it shows through the children and how they engage with their blackness by how much their parents love or dislike the black side of themselves. So,
Correct. I 100% agree with you on that.
Any final thoughts?
I don't know. When Meghan
I'm
Markle,
about to
I
Well,
be
start stimming, y'all.
calling BS on Meghan. I be calling BS on her. Like when she was like, I didn't know about the crown and I didn't know. Girl, you have a college degree. You didn't know that the British Empire invented racism. But anyway, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
and the thing is, Megan can't pass. She look like a lot of my cousins. It's like I don't know. She thought she was passing for where, what, where. But for the funny part, when Sydney they went to Alabama, and they were having like the big old dinner, and she ain't recognize none of that food. And I'm just sitting there like okay,
Utah.
didn't they have TVs? Didn't she look at TV and see black people eating different foods? I mean, I don't understand how she was just like there was like no way that she knew black people even existed. I don't understand
Wait
it.
a minute. It's
Like white
very
folks
easy
eat
to not see
chicken.
black people on TV
It's
now.
very
That can't
easy.
be one of the
Very
Oh,
that
easy.
can't be one of the
well, I
things.
guess not for me, yeah. But
Yeah.
okay, yeah, I guess because I'm black, so yeah, okay, I can't. I guess
Right.
I can't really speak on it. But but it was funny that she just like, okay, yeah, because she didn't eat the food. Okay, thank you, people. Okay, I understand now. But I just didn't. I just couldn't see it because I mean I
That
see
was a
white stuff all
weird.
the time.
That was
I'm
a
telling you,
weird
some of the
scene
stuff
in the
was very
book.
specific, very specific things like that that made me be like, oh yeah, you wrote that down from your wife. Tell me more, honey. I want to put this in the book.
But
There's
that
no way
scene,
he can't put that by himself. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on, come on,
that
come on.
scene in the book, like, eat these chitlins. What? That's what it
What?
was. They was just like, you
That
gonna
is
eat these
that was him
chitlins.
talking to his wife. I'm telling you, she wrote down personal. Give me some more stories, baby. I'm
But
gonna put
that
that
was
in the
so
book.
Mm.
problematic for so many reasons. The chitlin
They want
scene.
to. You want to eat chitlins? I'm gonna make you eat chitlins, baby. Your auntie may try to make you eat some chitlins when you went over there for Thanksgiving. Okay, I'm gonna put that in the book because that is great.
Mm.
I don't know.
Mm.
It was
So it
But it
wasn't
awful.
was
good.
so but it was funny when Nona's brother was looking at her, she was all hot for him. I said, just like your mama. You all black, but you want to get you all white, but you want to get that black all up in you, huh? I was
Mhm.
upset about that part.
Yeah.
You wasn't you wasn't
Right.
too
They
white then,
cleaned her
was
up.
you?
They said, listen, over here with the black folk girl, you are a preference, girl. You better do something with that head and come outside and embrace your biracialness. That's you know.
I didn't like that part either. It's like
Are there
really, dude. I didn't like
Yeah.
the ending at all.
Me
I'm
either.
like,
Cause I
Me
cause
either.
I don't think he thought it through. I don't think he wrote it the way he thought he wrote it. Because you probably want to write it as an open end that we would use our own imagination would happen. But to me, it was like he just forgot to finish his sentence. It's like, dude, where's the rest of the stuff at? So I don't think he did what he thought he was going to do. I don't think he wrote.
Didn't it end with him dancing or or something like that? Didn't it end with him dancing?
I don't know. He pushed a button and then that's all I
But
know.
wasn't he like dancing or something? I don't know. I have to go back and read the ending. I was just
Oh,
like, child, what is going on?
yeah. Because it was like, dude need a little bit more extra, little more experience of writing the end of a book. I don't know.
Bonita,
Well,
any final thoughts?
my
You guys,
closing thoughts are
I think we
the same thoughts when I started reading this book and I DM'd Keyoka, and I had the same thoughts that I had then about this book, and I said, uh, this book was given nobody likes me because I'm light skinned. Like there was a lot of
Mm.
that's nobody likes me because I'm light skinned. That's what this book was giving me. Like
Wow.
I don't know. I just was like, why? I don't know who suggested this book. I'm gonna say God bless you. I'm gonna say God bless you. I love you. If nobody else told you this week, this month, this year that you are
I
loved, I
posted
love you.
about the book.
Please
I
don't.
posted
Please
about the book just because
let's.
when I first read it, I was like, oh, all of them walked off. I was like, yes. I was like, it's so much promise. So I don't know if I'm responsible for this.
That's 2 books
Listen,
back to back.
say that
when
movie
I
review
tell
will be
Male
around.
you,
centered characters. Can we move on from the male centered characters book?
when I
I don't know
tell
what the next
you,
book is.
my sister was like, "Are you gonna let her stay in the book club?" My sister, because we were driving in the
Folk
car.
out.
We rode back home to New Orleans, and I was listening to the audiobook, and she was like, "What is this?" I said, "This is my book club." She like, "You just let anybody in the book club."
Oh my
It
goodness.
was them walking off in the water, and then it was the old black lady in the beginning. I was like, okay,
The
where's this
mammy,
going? Huh?
the mammy who he kept talking about, reminded him of his mother, and
Yeah,
she cooked and cleaned for
like,
him. And
I didn't look at her as a mammy. I was just kind of like, okay. When she was talking about the people getting healing, I was like, I could see that. I could see that. I was like, I could see this character. But
I
then,
thought,
like, it went somewhere else after that. The Ku
she was
Klux
gonna try to
Klan
kill him.
role, it just, nah.
So you picked that book? You're not allowed to pick no more books for 2020.
No.
I didn't pick it. I didn't pick it. I posted about it in the group.
Oh, now you don't even want to
I'm
own up to it.
Now
Right.
she gonna put it on me all the way. She's saying it's my
But
fault.
Keyoka picked the book.
There she go. There she go.
Mm-mm. Mm-mm.
We need
But
some of these books. Need to
hopefully,
go through.
if Keyoka picks, if
I think
Keyoka
y'all
lets
need a
us
break
read-
from books for a minute and do a movie review.
No, we good.
Yes. That was painful, I'm telling you.
No,
Maybe
no,
she
we need
did.
to find some more books. That's all.
We're
I-
next month's read is Nobody's Magic. I forgot who wrote it. But
Destiny
I have high hopes.
Birdsong.
Yes, Destiny Birdsong. Nobody's Magic by Destiny Birdsong. Hopefully it's better. I feel bad, y'all. I'm sorry. I feel like we have not had a book yet where everybody liked. Which you're not gonna find something that everybody likes, but most people dislike.
I think it's a good thing to do this. Then you know when you're actually reading something that's worth it for you going forward. You need to know the bad. Sorry, it was bad.
Well, yeah, or sometimes when I read a book, I read it through my own lenses, but other people may see something different. I'll be like, ooh, okay, well, maybe I need to stop thinking that way. Not that I'm going to stop, but, it gives me a different version of what the book may be about.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the discussion we had, Black Girl in Paris, that was a really good book because I think everybody, whether you liked it or you didn't like it, you came to it with like a different kind of gaze.
Oh,
And
yeah.
when we all had that discussion and we talked about the ways we viewed it, I think that was perfect.
Mhm.
That's right, Santa. I'm sorry, I'm looking at comments.
Well, maybe we can read Morgan Jerkins' book coming up, the Zeal book. That's like a romance.
You keep picking new
You
books.
ain't allowed to, you're not allowed to pick. Sorry.
Yeah,
Morgan Jerkins is good.
She can suggest. She can still suggest.
And then you guys sit back and go, denied.
She writes good books, Morgan Jerkins. She does.
All right, y'all. If you have no other notes about this, I think we had a great discussion. Sorry we didn't like your book, Cebo Campbell, child. I appreciate you guys watching. I didn't get to the comments as much as I usually do because I need a snack, and we've been talking for a long time. So y'all gonna have to catch me on the flip side. I will see y'all on the internet streets. If you are not a member of the Read and Wonder Book Club, the link is in the description of this video. What we doing? We got the next book for next month picked out. Okay, hopefully it's better than this one. Fingers crossed. And I'm gonna tell y'all something. I don't know if I'm supposed to tell y'all. Should I wait to tell y'all?
No.
I'm gonna wait to tell y'all. I'm gonna wait to tell y'all.
No.
I'm gonna wait to tell y'all. Click the notification button so you know whenever I go live. And I'll see y'all online. Okay, bye. Stay black. Peace out, guys.
Adios.